Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Steve again, Harmless Rebel. This is going to be kind of a cleanup video, kind of a hodgepodge of some recent really killer finds, and just some other stuff that I've been listening to as of late. Something that I just recently happened across. So I remember a few years ago, I did a video where I talked about Aqualung, which is just a favorite album of mine, always has been. And I was talking about the MoFi pressing. I've always thought the MoFi pressing was the best pressing out there. And everybody else, I got a bunch of comments, maybe 50 comments, people saying, oh man, the Steve Wilson mix blows it away. And I always knew that they were out there, and I just never grabbed the Steve Wilson mixes of stuff. He's got some stuff that I absolutely love. I'm a big fan of Steven Wilson in general. I love the stuff he does with Porcupine Tree. But for instance, I've got an Opeth album. I can't remember which one it is, but it's basically a double album. It's two albums in one, where he does he do Damnation? He's a producer on one of them, and another guy produces the other. And I think the other guy blew away the Steven Wilson cut of the album before that. So I was never really in a hurry to get these, and my local store, one of my local stores, got a bunch of them. And now, anytime I see them, I'm buying them. I love these Steven Wilson mixes. I don't know that this is my new favorite Aqualung. It sounds fantastic. Patrick at the Vinyl Archivist disagrees. He's not a fan of the Steven Wilson stuff, or at least not for Aqualung. I shouldn't say in general. I love all the Steven Wilson mixes that I've gotten so far. And what's really cool is all but one or two of the albums, which I'm not going to show right here, you can get for under $30, brand new. I mean, they're still printing a lot of them. You can still find them for good, even used. You can find them for $22. And they're all worth it. They all come with a really nice booklet. They're all dead quiet, and he just does a masterful job doing the Jethro Tull library. And I believe his goal is to do all of them. I think he's done 12 or 13 albums so far. But I think there's some others in the works, so I'm really looking forward to getting all of them. But this was the first one that I bought, and I liked it so much that I grabbed more. So I'm just going to flip through these real quick because I've been listening to them a lot. So this is the Steven Wilson mix of Aqualung. You've got Heavy Horses, Thick as a Brick, This Way. This is leftover stuff from Stormwatch. They call it Stormwatch 2. Fantastic. Stormwatch, Stand Up, Songs from the Wood. And that's it so far. I've got two others that I haven't listened to yet. Highly recommend all of them. Next two up are pressings I always heard everybody talking about and just never thought I'd run across them. And ran across both of them for a great price. This is the anniversary edition. I think it was 2010 of Dark Side of the Moon. A lot of people say that this is the best sounding pressing by far. These things are going in the mid threes now. I think I paid $75 for this. I don't think they knew what they had. It sounds so good. I'm not going to say it's as good as the quad mix. It's right there, though. The quad mix is probably still my favorite pressing of this album of all time. This is right there, maybe a half a step below. Sounds amazing, though. And I'm really happy to have that one. And then I also ran across this for a really good price, way less than half what it's going for. Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And this is the Classic Records 200-gram pressing. This thing sounds amazing too. I'm curious if the Atlantic 75 that QRP just pressed, Analog Productions just pressed, I'm curious if it's the stampers from the Classic Records. They haven't said. So if anybody's done a comparison of the two, I'm really interested in that. Next up, we got Struck Down from Y&T, or Yesterday and Today. Fantastic album. This is one of my favorites. This is one I don't see a lot of people talking about, though. So Next up, this is a recent reissue they did a fantastic job on. This is Substance 1987 from New Order. I had an original pressing of this, but the B side of the first disc had a huge scratch on it, and even with that scratch, I think I sold it for $50. I mean, it's insane. So really happy to have a nice new super clean pressing of this. Definitely a favorite of mine. Next up, this is a band I didn't even know about. Scott was out here last year, and we were digging at a place, and I flipped right past this. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa! You've got to get that. And it turns out he was right. Really killer bluesy rock from a band called Bucks. And what's significant about this band is two of the artists on here, including Mr. Punky Meadows, would go on to form Angel and have a lot more success. But this is a fantastic album. If you run across this, definitely worth having in the collection, especially if you like that first Angel album. Next up, not my favorite. It's actually one of my least favorite albums from this band. But to run across an original Bellophone pressing for a really good price, I had to grab it. I do like the album. It's just not my go-to. Their second and third albums are the ones I'm always into. But this is Journey to the Center of the Eye from Nectar. And staying in that region. Also picked up Power and the Passion from Eloy. I had a reissue of this. This is an original pressing. Eloy is just really killer. I believe that they're a weird band. I can't remember if they're British, but they got big in Germany, or if they're German and got big in England. They were part of the krautrock scene, but I want to say that they were British in the krautrock scene. Really good band, though. I've got 5 or 6 of their albums, and I love all of them. Next up, this is an album I didn't even know existed. This is Exercises from Nazareth. I really like the album. This is a really shitty pressing, though. It doesn't sound great. This was an anniversary deal that they did with BMG, and they just didn't press it very good. I want to find an original pressing of this. Like I said, I had never even seen this album cover before, and I showed it to some other people that love Nazareth. This was actually their second album that just wasn't near as popular as their first, or Hair of the Dog, or anything else that came out in the 70s. So this one just kind of disappeared into obscurity, I guess. I still like it, though. Not as good as the others, but still a good album. Next up, one of my favorite krautrock bands. When I showed this, I got this at a record show, and I showed my haul from the record show, and a couple people mentioned that this is the band's worst record. And if this is the band's worst record, then they're one of the greatest bands of all time, because this record's fantastic. I've also got one other record from this band that I absolutely love, and this is Jane. They're considered a krautrock band, but there's definitely some hard rock leanings, especially on their other album that I have, which the name escapes me. But man, Jane is a fantastic band. I had mentioned krautrock to somebody years ago, and they're like, "Oh, you like heavy metal, right?" They're like, "You'll really like Jane. Check them out." And it's something that I kind of forgot about. And then years later, I ran across one of their albums. I think it's Heaven and Hell is the name of the album, maybe. I like this one just as much, though, and fantastic artwork. This is a second German pressing, if I remember correctly. Is this on Brain? It doesn't say. Maybe it's not. Really good, though. Next up, this is just an upgrade copy. This was a promo copy, a photo finish from Rory Gallagher. One of the most, probably the most underrated guitarists of all time. Man, this guy is so good. One of my all-time favorites. The more I hear from him, the more I like him. Just look up some of his live stuff online, but a fantastic album. And then also from him, this is an album I didn't know existed. I have the debut from this band. I didn't know they did another album, but this is On the Boards from Taste, which is also Mr. Rory Gallagher. He was really young on the first album. I think he was like 17 when he recorded the first album. This was the second, so he can't have been more than 19 years old. He was such a prodigy. I mean, this was a young kid that Hendrix was talking about. This is a young kid that Peter Green was talking about. These guys really dug what this kid was doing. And you're talking about some of the powerhouses, and they still talk about how great this guy was during that early British blues period. But man, fantastic album from 1970. You like British blues? Anything from Rory Gallagher should be in your collection. Next up, I've just been picking up the Aerosmith albums, the original Japanese pressings as I run across them. This is one of those underrated albums that I've always liked, but has never been big with the fans. And was really happy to run across this for a really cheap price. Done with mirrors from Aerosmith. Again, with the Obi. This next one, there was a lot of hype about this, and then I got it, and I was pretty disappointed. It's not a bad sounding record, but I think Experience Hendrix is just to the point where all the good stuff is out there, and now they're just trying to release the best of what's left. This is Jimi Hendrix at the Hollywood Bowl in '67. I don't want to say it's bootleg quality, but it's not much better. It's a really good reference album. I personally buy everything I run across from Hendrix. He's one of my all-time favorites. Axis Bold as Love is my favorite album of all time. Since the first time I heard him, I've been hooked. And there's some really good stuff on here I like. He's definitely hitting some of my favorites. And you've got Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band on here as well, so you got a couple of his covers. But again, it's a reference pressing. It's one I might pull out from time to time just to hear it again, but it's never going to be a go-to for me. If you find it for a good price, if you're a Hendrix completist like I am, grab it. Otherwise, there's some better stuff out there. Next up, this was a really nice find too, and I found this for really cheap. Basically, a mint vinyl pressing with a near mint jacket of Vitalogy from Pearl Jam. Pretty much the last Pearl Jam that I care about. I think they did one of the best albums of the 90s, followed by a really good album, followed by this album, which was pretty good. Everything after that, they just kind of lost me. And I know there's people out there that love them. I get it. It's just not for me. But even this one, I really like half the album. The rest is just all right. But it was really nice to run across an original pressing. I just need an original of the debut, and I'll have really clean original of the first three. Next up, this is just one of those records. Another one that I got rid of when I did my purge because it was pretty well beat up. I think I got it from a Goodwill maybe 15, 20 years ago. But this has always been one of those great soundtracks. John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band just killed it on here. This is the soundtrack for Eddie and the Cruisers. I've always loved this one. I'd love to find a vinyl copy of Eddie and the Cruisers too. It's funny. I did find a copy years ago that was mint. And SMF Captain Howdy, that was like number one on his want list. So I sent it to him. And now that he sold his collection, I kind of regret sending it to him. But still have always loved the soundtracks to these movies. I need to watch the movie again. I remember liking it, but I haven't seen it since it came out. What was that? 83-ish, so maybe 84 I saw it. Great soundtrack though. Next up, these guys were here in town, and they just also reissued the album. I wanted to go see them, but I had other plans that night. They were playing with Adam Ant, and I've heard he's still doing great shows too. But this is the English Beat. I just can't stop it. The A side of this is phenomenal. This is for you second wave ska guys out there. If you're into the two-tone record stuff, you probably know half the songs on this record without even knowing who the English Beat are. But there's so many classics on here. The A side is just 10 out of 10. The B side's not as good, but the A side on here is just absolutely phenomenal. This is one of those records that should be in everybody's collection. It's just really, if you like Madness, you're gonna like English beat, the specials. Speaking of madness, after I played this, I kind of got in the madness mood, and I hadn't listened to Mad Not Mad in a long time. By this point, they were pretty much a pop band, but you still had a little elements here and there of their earlier sound. I've still always liked this album. I think this one was 84 or 85. This was later. Yeah, 85. It's still fun to pull out from time to time, though. A few left. I know the last couple videos have been going on pretty long. Yeah, we're at 15 minutes already. Next up, this is one I've been looking for a nice copy of forever. I just never saw them. And then it's funny, I finally found this copy about 2 weeks ago. And then within a week, like 4 other record stores I ran across had it. I mean, it just pissed me off after looking for all this time. Now all of a sudden it pops up everywhere at the same time. But this is Teenage Depression from Eddie and the Hot Rods. These guys are so good. One of the kind of preeminent pub rock bands, kind of touching on punk, though. I like the 2 albums after this a little bit better, but this one is fantastic, too. I really dig this one. Like I said, a little more on the punk pub rock side, but still, you're starting to hear some of that early punk in here as well. Just a fantastic album. I've always loved that artwork as well. And then another of my all-time favorite albums. This is a 74 repress of Metal, 74 UK. I can't remember who the mastering engineer is on this one. It's one of the big names, though, and this particular pressing is kind of one of people's go-to pressings. I found it for a really good price. Again, it's my favorite Pink Floyd song, and it's probably in my top 20 all-time favorites, but really happy to have this one as well. I actually had an original US, and this thing blows it out of the water. I also have the reissue from a couple years ago, which I'm going to be selling because it's not even listenable after you listen to this, or the US original pressing. Excuse me. Next up, this was another recent find I was shocked to run across. I bought this for less than you can buy the reissue for, which is ridiculous because this one blows the reissue away. This is